welcome to another edition of New Bedford Connections. I am your host, Paul Santos. We're coming to you from our beautiful Fort Waterman studios overlooking New Bedford Harbor. And of course, we have another stellar guest today, a lady that you've been reading in the Standard Times for a long time, always has these very interesting, introspective things to say. She's a columnist with the newspaper that actually won the Newspaper of the Year last year. Welcome to the program, Susan Pawlak-Seaman of the Standard Times.
Hi,
Susan,
Paul, nice to see you.
Great to have you here on New Bedford Connections. Well, it's interesting that I have you here because I've been reading you for a long time, as I'm sure most people in the area have been. And it just seems to me such a different kind of a job to be able to just kind of, I just think I'll write about something today and get something off my chest. I mean, that must be one of the things that makes it fun, right?
Yeah, it absolutely is. I joke at work that writing my column is my therapy, because my real job is being a suburban editor and education editor. So I kind of write for fun.
Yeah, right.
And it really is therapeutic for me, though. I would be, really miss it if I weren't writing something. And having been a reporter for a lot of years, when you really can't have opinions, I had a lot of them stored up.
Yeah, right. So they bubble over and they end up in your column.
Yes.
Well, before we get into all of that and how you come up with these ideas and how you write all these articles, we're going to do our biography of the guest and learn a little bit about Sue Pawlak-Seaman, originally from the area, right?
Right, yes. I haven't strayed very far over the years. I was born in Middleborough, lived there till just after 4th grade. My dad owned a neighborhood grocery store in the west side of Middleborough. And then we moved to Lakeville when I was in 5th grade, and I went through the Lakeville school system, went on to Apponequet, and then went to Stonehill College in Easton, and then came to work for the Standard Times. And now I live in Dartmouth, so I'm kind of made a little circle.
Well, all those are all great in New Bedford, right? So New Bedford great in New Bedford Connections. That's what we like to say. But it was interesting. When you were in school, you were actually thinking about law, which is what I do. Yeah. Right? You were flirting with that idea, but you were working already part-time for the newspaper, right?
Yeah. Actually, way back when, in the late 1960s, the Standard Times had high school columnists, and I was recruited. I was recruited to be one. And I probably would cringe if I looked at those now, but basically it was like, well, the Honor Society did this, and the Stamp Club did that, and the Traffic Squad. Remember the Traffic Squads in high school?
Yeah, right. What a great way to get started, right? And then you got in there and you got comfortable, and you've been with it ever since.
Yeah, right? And I while I'd originally thought about going to law school, I just really enjoyed journalism so much. Majored in English, minored into history, and it was just something that I've always enjoyed. Words and writing and reading.
Well, the same kind of skills, I suppose, are useful. And if you're writing a column or you're preparing a brief or something like that, it's all still putting thoughts together and putting them in a way that's persuasive or whatever. So it seems like there's a lot of similarities. But you actually never did journalism in school, right?
No, we didn't have any journalism courses at that point at Stonehill. Right now, actually, Maureen Boyle, who was a colleague of mine at the Standard Times for a number of years and then went on to the Enterprise, she's teaching journalism at Stonehill. So we kind of get a chuckle out of that because we've stayed in touch.
So actually you must have some natural ability then, since you didn't have this whole journalism thing,
Well,
it's natural talent is important.
I grew up in a newspaper house. I remember my mother and my father, at that time there were morning papers and afternoon papers.
You get the late editions coming. We're going to see what's going on in the late edition, right? Yeah.
And my mom was from Taunton, so we got the Taunton Gazette, and my dad was from Middleborough, but he gravitated toward the Boston papers, so we had, I think it was the Advertiser and the Herald American, and there were all these different hybrids that have long since disappeared. And so I was always around newspapers and always, reading and it just kind of, I guess they're in my blood.
Really influenced, right?
Yeah.
Now, obviously married to Hank. And I used to see Hank, when I was doing the Channel 13 sports, I used to see him out taking the, pictures of sports and stuff back in the day. And I also understand you have a stepdaughter, is it?
Yes, I have a stepdaughter who's 41 years old, and she's a college professor outside of Atlanta, Georgia, and she's into classical studies.
Sounds like she's doing okay.
She's doing fine, yeah. No, Hank and I have been married we had our 35th wedding anniversary last fall, which is pretty good nowadays.
Yeah, that's a good run right there.
Well, I was telling him it would be way too much work to break in somebody new at this point.
Right, exactly. So let's talk a little bit about this whole column thing, because as we talked about at the outset, it is fascinating to be able to sit down and write about anything that you want. And I would think that if it were me, right, if something was irritating me,
Yep.
that would be like, wait a minute, I'm going to wait till I write my column.
Exactly.
I can't wait to get this baby off my chest. So you do that a little bit, right? If something is annoying you or something's on your mind or something like that, right?
It's just kind of whatever. I have a running series of notes to myself. I jot down things. Sometimes you're stuck in traffic, you see a bumper sticker.
Right.
One column had its genesis in that. A bumper sticker said, "Remember to be kind." And I was like, why do we have to tell people to remember to be kind?
Right.
And it was some sort of an Abbey out.
Well, there's a lot of people that aren't too kind out there. So
and so I scribbled that down in the car. And
so you have a notepad right in the car?
Yeah, well, sticky notes and.
So you get the GPS and you get the notepad over here, and you're good to go.
I try not to do it when it might be dangerous while I'm driving.
Don't make notes and drive at the same time. There's Sue Pawlak making notes as you're driving down the road. Don't do that.
Driving to distraction or something. But I do keep sort of a running list and all, and then I work off of events, and sometimes they kind of come together. A few weeks ago, I'd been kicking around. I don't wear skirts. I kind of stopped wearing skirts years ago, and for no particular reason. But
it was popular. Remember the day the pants first came out for the ladies and all that.
But it was like a lot of the women I work with, especially the young women, wear dresses or skirts again. But I just don't. Most of our office is a little cold too, so that has part of it.
That doesn't help.
It's year round. So I jotted down this idea, don't wear skirts. And I probably wrote that down about 6 months to a year ago. And
then put it aside, forgot about it.
Yeah. And then it's like, okay, there really wasn't a whole column in that. And then the Supreme Judicial Court ruled that a creepy guy on the Boston subway did not break the law when he had a cell phone camera and he was shooting up women's skirts.
Yeah, right.
So I'm
outrageous.
like, aha, the light bulb goes
off. So you went off and you wrote a column.
So it's like, okay, and so the lead was, I haven't worn a skirt in years. Now I know why.
Yeah, right. So you're going to stick with that.
It's just there.
Well, you wrote one recently about the Mass DPH sent you a letter about a survey. The thing that was hilarious about that is that this is the home apparently that your in-laws had owned 35 years ago.
Oh yeah.
And they sent you a letter that was in the name of people that lived there 35 years ago. So they're asking you for a survey. They haven't even got the resident right.
Yeah.
Now, I imagine your address is, I'm sure, was at the post office or whatever.
Yeah.
And they got that screwed up.
Yeah.
And you still took the survey, which there's no way I would have taken that survey. I would have gone in right in a shredder. At the end of that.
I confess, as soon as I got the letter, I was like thinking, there could be a column in this.
If you weren't a columnist, you wouldn't have done the survey, right? Admittedly, right?
Yeah, and I probably wouldn't do another one again. I've since found out that it's actually, it's standard protocol that you have to listen to the entire question to make sure you get accurate statistical results and blah, 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 blah. Well, you know what? It's like after a while it still gets silly. I don't care whether that's how it's supposed to be done. I hate to sound
like a miserable person, but when I get these calls like that, it's just like, I think, well, maybe I should be a good Samaritan or a good citizen and answer the question. I get the thing, what are you talking about? Click. There must be some other scientific way to do this besides bothering me. I got things to do. I got to watch TV and relax. I haven't got time for this survey. But it is kind of annoying when you get these kind of things. At least that one. This was in the mail, right?
In the mail, and then they followed up with a phone call and all. But a lot of them are just. We do the do not call stuff at home and everything. You still get calls because of charities.
Yeah, how come nobody follows the do not call thing?
I think some people are exempt, charities, nonprofits, and that sort of stuff. But again, I fondly refer to them as stupid calls. You look at the when the number comes up.
That could be another column. Stupid calls.
Stupid calls.
Well, you like to put too, live and learn. You say live and learn, and then you have the title. So where did that come from? That's just something you thought of?
Well, actually, it started because I was education reporter for about a dozen years at the Standard Times before I moved into editing. And the editor at the time, Ken Hartnett, who is a very dear friend of ours, had wanted me to write some sort of an education column weekly. So we batted around some stuff, and I don't remember. I didn't come up with the name, but I've kind of grown to like it, and
so
it's
been
around. So I still use it, and I figured it out. I went back because I was trying to figure out how long I've been writing this column, and I believe it started in like 1994. So we're going on like 20 years if we're not already there.
If it isn't broke, right? Don't fix it. Keep it rolling. We're heading into the spring now, and this show is going to air probably over the summer, with the repeats and everything. But we had ML Barron on here. I'll ask the weather dude. Right? He was great.
Yeah.
And I had him on here, and poor ML, I complained to him about how lousy our winters have been. It was like me. That was my therapy. I'm like, ML, this weather is awful. I can't wait to go down south for a week or something.
Yeah.
But you had the column where you put your boots away. You thought it was it's typical New England, right?
Yeah.
You figure, okay, the first 50-degree day, it's not going to snow anymore now. Let's
Throw 'em in
put
the closet,
the boots away and all that. And then boom, here comes another one with the single digits, and so that. I guess that, I don't want to, but for lack of a better phrase, kind of irritated you a little bit.
Yeah.
And you said, all right, let's get that column going. Right?
Yeah.
So that kind of stuff is fun. You know?
Yeah, it's just, I tend to write a lot about family and pets. I have a dog and 2 cats. And,
right.
and
a dog and 2 cats, so that's a lively situation there, right?
They get along really well.
Yeah.
Well, we at one point had a dog and 5 cats, but they all gradually, got older and went on to kitty heaven, but they're great. I love love animals. And a couple of years ago, to be 2 years this summer, we lost our yellow lab, and we'd had her for 11 years. She was a rescue. Virtually almost all our dogs have been rescues. This is our 5th married dog that we're on, and so I wrote a column about. I tried not to write about her death. I tried to write about her life.
Right.
And she had been an abused dog, and but how she bonded with us and what she gave us back and all. And just to say, as hard as it is to lose them, I wouldn't trade the experiences of any of the 3 that I had before her. Right. And when the time is right, we're going to get another one.
Well, you said that you told me before that when you write about pets, that gives you one of the better responses that you get from your readers. Right?
A huge
People love
response.
to talk about animals, right?
Yeah,
Pets and stuff.
And what was really gratifying to me was after that particular column was that I heard from people who had recently lost animals or had lost them within the last, and they said, I can't go through it again, it's too painful.
Yeah.
And several of them have since written to me, you know what, I went out and got another dog,
that
and I love
this
animal. And it's just, and it's just because there are so many unwanted animals out there.
Well, we had a lab for about 15 years, right? And we had to put the dog to sleep. But we did it the right way. We got the family together. It was a real moving.
It's wrenching, though.
It was a real sad moving
They're part of the
event.
family.
But we did it the right way. We said goodbye in the way that we wanted to do it. So then I was like, you know what? Enough of this dog stuff, and all that. So then, my wife said, we got to get another dog. So 6 months later, I caved in. So we went from a lab to this part schnauzer, part poodle. So this dog, Charlie, jumps on you, and he's so friendly. And in fact, when my wife was looking for a dog, she found this online, the no fuss, no bother dog. So she says to me, hey, look, this is our dog right here. It's the no fuss, no bother dog. You can't say no to this dog, right? So, all right, you know what? The no fuss, no bother dog, that's the kind of, if I have to have a dog, that's the kind of dog I want. But anyway, now the lab, when I go to my friend's house and he has a lab, right? This lab looks like a horse. It's like this big, like, oh my God, look at this dog. Right? But now the little, it's part schnoozer and schnauzer. Not schnoozer. Schnauzer.
I think they call
so my wife calls it a
actually.
schnoodle. We get the little schnoodle, but he's great. But it is true, like, now that he's there, and I have to confess, I really didn't want to get another dog.
Yeah.
But now that he's there, we have a great time with the guy.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's a fun little guy. You know?
Yeah.
So I admit I'm sold. But so it's no surprise to me that, among the different topics that you cover, when you talk about pets, the listeners, the readers, they really like that.
They relate to that. And the one we have now is actually, she's a West Virginia dog. A lot of the shelters around here have been bringing up dogs from
ours is from down south
Louisiana,
too.
Kentucky, Tennessee, West Virginia, and the shelters are just hugely overcrowded there, and the economy, as bad as it was here, has been worse down there, and they were euthanizing an awful lot of them, and it's heartbreaking. And so we have Coley, and she's a great dog, and she's part shepherd, part border collie, and part lab.
Okay.
So she's.
And what about the cats?
The cats are. The cats are shelter
Nobody
cats.
ever says what kind of breed is that cat.
They're your basic breed. There's
I don't know. He was at the door one day. We gave him some water, and he has been here ever since.
No, they just kind of we adopted them, and we have Jazzy and Bogey, and Bogey is fondly known as
named after Bogey.
Yeah. Well, mostly we call him the devil cat from hell.
He's looking at you, kid.
Because he's always doing bad stuff, but he's much.
Well, that's great. One of the other things I know you do, and I'm going to ask you about this column, is if an event comes up, like an anniversary event, that triggers something. When they had the 30th anniversary of the Beatles, was it 30th? No, it was 50th.
50th. Yeah,
it was only 20
we're going to
years
date ourselves here.
It was the 50th anniversary of the Beatles going on Ed Sullivan, and I was only 4 at the time, but I remember vaguely. But I know folks that were a little bit older, teenagers especially. They remember that like it was unbelievable.
Oh yeah, it was a big deal.
And it was a big deal. And you wrote about it. I'm sure that there were a lot of readers that had the same thing, thought that you did.
We heard a lot. Actually,
what a big deal that was.
Yeah, right? I was 10 years old. And Hank and I both wrote columns on that one. Occasionally, he still writes.
You didn't know each other as kids or anything, did you?
No.
Because there were some people that did.
No. He's 7.5 years older than me. But I found out, when I met him, that he had spent a couple of summers as a counselor at the Ted Williams camp, which was located in Lakeville, about, a couple miles from my house. But I was a little elementary school kid at that point, so we didn't know each other. But we try occasionally to write columns on the same topic. And
so you saw the anniversary come, you say, boy, I remember that.
And we all just
right?
and he had his ideas and all, and it's good. He still writes occasionally. I think a lot of people in the area know that he was a photographer for the Standard Times for a number of years, and then he became a columnist, which is a pretty good career shift. And most people's brains don't work in both directions. And then be 10 years ago this fall that he had a debilitating stroke.
Right, I remember.
So that was really like a life-changing event, and he's been disabled, but his mind is fine, and the body works a little bit differently. But that's another thing that we've both tried to write about, because I got a crash course in strokes.
Right.
And
I remember you writing about it at the time.
And I think a lot of people think it's like old people in a nursing home or something that this happens to, and it's not. Hank was 58 at the time of his.
Right.
We've since learned about everybody from little kids to 20-somethings to 30-somethings, right up, and then older people, and it's just it is, as I said, a life-altering experience.
Yeah, right.
So we've tried, when we get information about something, I think we try to share it. I know I joke around at work that every time I have some sort of a health thing, I write about it. I've written about the importance of getting mammograms. When I had my first colonoscopy, I wrote about that.
Yeah, I just had mine rescheduled.
The prep's the worst part.
Yeah, I go to this thing. I have to drink what?
Yeah. And I don't like salty stuff, so that's
right.
But when I had a bout with skin cancer in 2000,
you forget about
I
it
wrote about that.
You know what I mean? I actually had a kidney removed. I had a tumor.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? All of a sudden, it's like, what? I got a tumor? What are you talking about?
Yeah.
And so, but if you're not thinking about it, it's always good to get the word out, to get down there
and to get people thinking that it's important to do that, take care of yourself.
If you do it too late, it could be a disaster. Obviously,
Yeah.
But so, you and Hank both came up in the generation of the '60s and all that. Now, I vaguely remember the Beatles, but I do remember because, from '64 to like 1970, it was all the British invasion, the Paul Revere and the Raiders and the Dave Clark Five and the Herman Sermon. So I do remember that. And that was that whole time. Growing up in that time, you have a unique kind of a, I don't know, you were kind of in the front row of that whole generation.
Yeah. It was.
What was that like?
It was pretty tumultuous. I mean, I remember when I started college, the drinking age was 18. Of course, they'd never do that nowadays.
No.
It would be a recipe for disaster. But it was, there was a lot of stuff going on with civil rights. There was a lot of stuff going on with women's rights. The women's movement was big. And, it seems to be a bad word nowadays, but I definitely consider myself a feminist.
Right. You wrote about this recently, too, as women, as always, women making the mark.
Yeah. Well, I just heard on the way in that today is equal pay for equal work day, and that women still are only making 77 cents on the hour to men for comparable work, and so the president called that really embarrassing. And I think it's we should have gotten past that at this point. It should have been resolved. And one of my big concerns that I write about every so often is that feminism seems to have taken on it's become a bad word, and a lot of the younger women seem to think, well, they did it for us, everything's okay, and
they can coast.
And everything's not okay. And that's when I get serious in writing, that's one of my topics, because it's really bothersome to me. I would hate to see things that we've gained erode. So.
And you get to, as we said, one of the things you get to do is if something's on your mind and you want to make a point, you make that point, right? Now, here's one that I thought was interesting. Around the holidays, right? Now, and I enjoy the holidays.
I love the holidays,
However, I do think it's gotten a little crazy with the commercialism and everything else. But one of the things you said that you put the television on, and I do too, and right around the holidays, every sappy, tear-jerking movie that has anything to do with Christmas and the holidays is on the air, like around the clock. So you said, well, I couldn't, this is like a cure for insomnia because I can put these movies on and
fall asleep.
But well, once you
I end up watching it.
Once you get sucked into one of these things, and on the Lifetime channel, I'm sorry to admit this, right? I do get sucked into these Lifetime movies. So I'm flipping around, and of course the holidays and everything else, and here comes another sappy, heart-wrenching, and I get sucked into the thing, and I'm watching the thing. And, you can't change the channel once you're a half hour into it.
No.
So this is what happened to you, and you wrote about it.
And I start crying, and I'm like mad at myself for crying.
Most of them are emotional.
Oh, and they're so formulaic, and I mean they're deliberately, they just really suck you in.
They really come right and grab you, and So one of your columns was, hey, I had insomnia. Here's the cure for insomnia. Here's another sappy Christmas movie that I'm going to watch. So there's another example of something that you came up upon the holidays. You happened to stumble on one of these movies, and you thought, hey, I'll put this in the next column. Now it's once a week. You do a column once a week.
Yeah, once a week, every Friday.
So at least it gives you a little bit of time to. Yeah. I'm sure that does it ever happen? I would think somebody like yourself, obviously a veteran of the business, a veteran columnist. Do you ever get to the time that you're supposed to have a column and go, gee, I got nothing right now?
It's like, oh my God, what am I going to write about?
Even you can draw a blank?
Yeah, and then I have the there's like A-level subjects, B-level subjects, and C-level subjects. So if you're really stuck,
I
can dig into this.
I guess I'm going to have to write that weaker one that I don't really want to write.
What's really funny sometimes is it's like, ooh, I'm writing that one, and it, people connect with it. So it's really hard to tell.
Well, yeah, right, because I bet you probably write a column, I imagine. Let me ask you the question. Do you ever write a column you think, this is going to be a real good one, and then maybe it's good or it's okay or whatever, and then you're going to write about a subject and you're thinking, this one, I don't really have anything this week, so let me do something here. And then that's the one that everybody likes.
It's happened. I can't even tell you how many times it's happened and all. I think, people just like to read about things that they can relate to in their own lives. Another thing I tend to write frequently about is family things, reminiscence of my dad and my mom, who both died a number of years ago, and they've been gone 22 and 32 years respectively. So it's a good part of my life has been without them, but I have wonderful memories of them and how they helped shape me. And I have one brother who lives in Westport, and he and my sister-in-law have two great kids, both of whom were adopted as babies from South Korea.
Oh, that's awesome.
So and they're like about as American kids as you can get now. Elliot just got his learner's permit, and Sophie's going to be a teenager next birthday.
The old dreaded learner's permit age and the teenager. I went through all that.
Yeah. So
my son's driving a car. What the heck is going on here?
This can't be possible.
Look out for the mailbox.
But they're great, and seeing them grow up, and it's been funny because they're this high-tech generation. I mean, from the time they were little. Well, for years we had something else I wrote about. For years we had, don't ask me why, a dial telephone. And all, and the kids would come over when they were little and all, and they're like, Auntie Sue.
You're making me feel like I've been around forever here.
Auntie Sue, how do you work this? And I said, well, you put your finger in it and you just dial it.
They didn't even know how to work it.
They couldn't figure. I mean, it's like you think about a dial phone and you just kind of there's a little technique to it, and it was just totally foreign to them.
Well, remember how all the telephone numbers around here used to be the 99.
Yeah.
So you always had to go. Take it like 5 minutes to get the phone call. But once you got through, there was an actual human being on the other side. So now you can get on in 2 seconds, but then you got to press 1 for this, press 2 for that. I don't know what you're talking about. That's really frustrating.
I actually do love the new technology because I started out literally on the manual typewriters.
You do the Facebook and all this stuff.
And Twitter and all of that. But
everybody's walking around with I'm still trying to adjust to this. Because younger generation, everybody's kind of walking around and like half their attention is you have a conversation with somebody, and half their attention is kind of there, but they're kind of like peeking over here. You can tell when you're boring somebody because they start looking at the thing there. They're looking at they're having a conversation with somebody else at the same time, right?
Well, I have to laugh with some of the young reporters because everybody's got cell phones and smartphones and all, and I can remember looking for a payphone where you could call in from it if you were out covering something and you needed to dictate something. You'd have to dictate something on Deadline and all, and it was a great learning experience. But that part I don't miss at all, and I love the technology.
The business has changed so much.
I mean, we used to have to cut and paste. You type a paragraph and I don't want that there, and you have to rip it up and paste it in here. We've got the old glue guns, and I love cut and paste on computers because my mind. I'm one of those people. I like it to be the way I want it to be as I'm
in the
writing.
kind of order that you're writing.
Yeah,
So,
and it was, you know.
I mean, obviously there's an upside to it, and obviously the newspaper business has been hurt a little bit too by the internet, by the new thing. You know, what are your thoughts on that? Because it's nice. It's still nice to have. Bedford has a obviously newspaper of the year, so congratulations on that again. Most cities have at least one newspaper, but it's not like the old days where the big cities.
It's a struggling industry, and we all know that. But
what do you think is the prognosis for the future? What do you think the newspaper should do to kind of keep going?
I think what we have to do is achieve a good balance. Obviously, a lot of things are leaning toward online, and we keep developing. And we keep developing our website, and we keep looking for new ways. I mean, there's videos out there now. There's all sorts of things that we never had even 5-10 years ago. I'd like to think that there's a future for print, but I think you have to find that formula, that balance where you're getting the information out as fast as you can. There's tons of competition now, but it's also nice, and I hear many people, and not just older people, say, I really like the feel of a newspaper.
Well, I was just going to, those are the exact words I was just going to say. I even brought a couple of papers here with your column, the last couple of columns that I wrote, but on a Sunday morning, I get the paper. The kids are all in there, zing, zing, zang, zing with the thing, and and the iPad and everything. And I just like to grab the cup of coffee and get that paper like this. And so I'm just like an old time. I'm going to be like a relic. I'm going to be the guy they got to have the paper right here. You know what I mean? But really, it's obviously good the newspapers have their website and so forth. But I do like the paper.
Well, it's like,
I do like to have the paper right there. There's
something nice about print. I mean, the same thing with books. I mean, a lot of people have their Nooks and all, and they're reading on that, and that's great. But I know Hank just loves to have the feel of a book in his hands. And, and
it's the same kind of idea. And then, of course, being able to talk about different stuff. Now, you actually mentioned about, speaking of great technology and everything, high-definition TVs. You were going to go get a high-definition television, so what happened?
We were a holdout. I was a holdout because
you didn't want to get the high-definition?
Well, I had this 36-inch ProScan that was like, one of those monster big things that weighed about 15,000 pounds.
10 feet deep, as it was.
And
I had one of those, too.
Early on when we got it kind of had problems, and they had to replace stuff, and it was under warranty. Well, the thing just was like, it didn't die, and it still worked.
Yeah, but why? So being like me, right? I'm kind of conservative. Why get another one if you don't have to get one?
But everybody started laughing at us and all, and I was just like, and Hank was like, humming me, and then after a while, it's like, okay, I'm really.
That's usually how it happens. The spouse hums, and then you get
and then I was kind of like, after a couple of years, I said, that's it. So we got one, and that was another one I got a lot of response to.
But what is it? Because you actually thought that it was too clear because you could see every little flaw.
Well, it's kind of nice to know that all these people on TV have wrinkles and stuff. They look so just perfect. And
the television I had before I went to the high definition, I had one of those too. It was one of those old. They used to call them projection TVs. So it was a great big TV, and it was 10 feet thick. And after a while, it got this cloud in the corner. But the cloud was like, I don't know, it was kind of out of the way. It was like in the upper corner. So my kids were like, Dad, when are you going to get rid of the 10? I'm like, that cloud's not that bad. So I left the cloud in the corner for like a year, and then finally I had to cave in. But the high definition, I finally got a 60-inch, right? Which for me, that's right. But when I'm not a big sports fan, you watch the Red Sox and the Bruins on that baby. Oh my God!
It's
like
just
it's better than being at the game. It's unbelievable what you can see in that thing.
It's just terrific. Yeah, and everybody's got them. I know. I tried to see it work, and people that normally would take anything. I tried to give this TV away, the big one. Nobody wanted.
Nobody wanted. Oh, you tried to get rid of the old TV.
So they finally just carted it away when they brought the new one.
You need a Mack truck to be able to get that thing out of there.
Yeah, it was just.
Well, it's like the computers too. The computers used to be really thick, and now they're these flat screens. But anyway. Hey, I know we've only touched the tip of it all, but our half hour is over. We really appreciate you stopping by. I'm sure that you're going to continue onward, and you're still writing for that's the only newspaper you've ever written for, right?
Yes, my entire career, approaching 40 years, has been there.
So your plan is to just keep on going, right?
And it's still fun, and I feel very fortunate to have a job all these years that I still love.
Well, you do a nice job, and we appreciate you stopping by New Bedford Connections.
It's great. Thank you.
All right, Susan Pawlak-Seaman, columnist for the New Bedford Standard Times, and she does a fantastic job, so make sure you read her column every single Friday in the New Bedford Standard Times. I'm Paul Santos, your host. We appreciate you looking in for the last few minutes, and we hope we'll catch you next time right here for New Bedford Connections. Good night.